Welcome to Trading Nation. I'm Brian Sullivan. Very excited to have a guy on the show that I literally consider one of the smartest people I've ever met. Raoul Pal, publisher of the Global Macro Investor Report. How's that for an intro, Raoul?
A little bit over the top, Brian, but I'll take it.
Well, you know, I agree with that because you make these big macro calls. You're so right for so long. You basically retired at 36 or 35 years old after working in hedge funds. Just if people aren't familiar with who you are, they should be. Let's talk about the stuff you love to talk about, macro. First thing I want to talk about is Trump and the U.S. dollar. One seems to be shaking the stick. The other one seems to be going up. What's your trading call on the dollar and the Trump policies that are impacting it?
Yeah, I think the dollar's going higher because of Trump policies. If you have more protectionism, there's less dollars in the global system. If you try and repatriate profits from companies abroad, it brings more dollars back into the U.S. and out of the global system. So generally speaking, Trump policies are incredibly dollar bullish. Trade protectionist policies are bullish. The dollar has been correcting for the first month or so of this year. So there's a reasonable chance, I think, that the dollar goes higher. Trump clearly doesn't want it to go higher, but you can't have your cake and eat it. So I think over time, the dollar continues to go higher. It might mess around a bit, should rally for a bit for the next week or so, then it might pull back again. But overall, for the rest of this year, I think the dollar goes much higher.
Really, you do, because it's been well, and I want to be clear. I mean, you sort of saw this coming, not Trump maybe, but the dollar a while back, over a couple of years ago. You said the dollar is likely to go stronger. But how much more do you think it really has, Raoul? I mean, it's accelerated so much against so many other currencies.
Yeah, and I think, unbelievably, I think it goes much further. We've had two big dollar bull markets in history, one in the early 80s, one in the late 90s. The first one rose 100%, the second rose 50%, and so far we've done about 35%. With the backdrop of this and that $10 trillion shortfall that the BIS keep talking about, how many people have borrowed dollars abroad, the chances are that this should go much further than we are now and somewhere between the previous two dollar bull markets. So I think, the euro goes down to 75 cents over time again, not this week or next week. I think the DXY probably gets to maybe 125 or so.
The dollar impacts a lot of things, but it also impacts the crude oil market as well. I thought for a couple of years crude oil was the most interesting and important story in the world. That's why I kind of travel all over the place, literally digging into the story. Things have really sort of settled down now, Raoul. I mean, in the mid-50s, low 50s, whatever you want to say. What's your macro view on crude oil?
So my view is twofold. One is dollar and crude are linked at the hip. They have separated recently. They've diverged. So crude oil's gone up, or the dollar's been going up. That's a pretty rare occurrence. Usually doesn't last for long. So we usually then start to look at, is that gap going to close? How's it going to close? And then I looked at crude oil positioning. So the speculative positioning in crude oil futures is the biggest in all of history. If you look at the 30-year trend, it's kind of 7 standard deviations. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And so it makes me think if speculators are record long and it's diverging from what the dollar's doing, and I think the dollar goes up, then I think, on balance, over this year, crude will massively disappoint to the downside.
Massively disappoint to the downside. Just because production, 29 rigs last week, just production is going to go up, up, up. What do they say? The cure for high prices is high prices?
Exactly right. I mean, people are trying to produce more and more and more. With all of the developments going on, you've got to imagine there's more crude oil. It's going to keep pushing the prices down. Then with the dollar, then with the speculative positioning, you've got to think that the balance of probabilities are that oil's going to be lower, not higher, over the course of the year.
What do you make of the move in bonds? I mean, the benchmark 10-year yield is up about 35% in a matter of just a couple of months. Do you think the 30-year secular bull market in treasuries is over?
Well, interestingly enough, I was just before I got on the call with you, I looked at the 6-month rate of change of 10-year bond yields. It's the largest spike in 6 months in history of the entire bond market. So we've had a massive move in yields in relative terms. Now, the thing is a lot of the move is a reflection of the weakness from early last year, at the end of last year, in terms of crude oil, commodities, and the strength in the dollar. So that creates inflation in the year-on-year terms to look like it's spiking. Now, that whole thing starts unwinding again from about February, when the markets all bounced last February. So I'm expecting people to be thinking bond yields are going to 3% and higher. They might back up again to, let's say, 270 in the 10-year, But I think the probability is from there, you want to be a buyer of bonds and not a seller of bonds. Also, the speculative positioning in bonds is the biggest in history on the short side. So, that unwind of that position also helps you should you start buying bonds.
Well, you shouldn't have a problem finding somebody to sell your bonds to, should you?
Exactly right.
Everybody's on the other side.
So I love to be a buyer when everybody wants to sell.
Exactly. That's what I love about having you on. Raoul Pal, global macro investor. Raoul, it was great to chat with you again. Don't be a stranger. We'll see you soon, I hope.
Absolutely. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Folks, thank you for watching Trading Nation. I'm Brian Sullivan. See you next time.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.